Welcome back to Damn Parenting, the podcast where we explore the diverse experiences of international families raising children in the Netherlands. I'm your host, Eva, and today I have the pleasure of introducing you to someone whose journey I've admired for years. I first met Jillian 3 years ago through a volunteer initiative, and since then, I've watched her carve out a unique space for herself here in the Netherlands. Not only has she launched her own business, but she also hosts the One Handshake podcast that delves into how a single connection can transform your life or business. Her commitment to building connections and supporting others is truly inspiring. In this episode, Jillian shares her story of moving to the Netherlands as part of a same-sex couple seeking a welcoming environment to raise her child. We'll discuss the challenges they face, the commitment they built, and the insights they've gained along the way. Whether you've considered a move or simply interested in diverse parenting experiences, Jillian's story offers valuable perspectives. So let's dive in. Welcome, Jillian.
Hello, hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're just going to jump right straight into the main question. What actually inspired you and your partner to choose the Netherlands as a place to raise your child?
Let's see here. First of all, I just want to say for a moment, I really appreciate the invite and the opportunity to share my story. And I also want to take a moment to congratulate you on this podcast. I remember the first time I saw like a poster about it somewhere and I saw Damn Parenting. I'm like, what a brilliant name. That is so great. And it was before I realized it was yours. So once I found out that it was you, I thought, well, of course. So amazing concept. I love it. Fan of the show and a fan of yours as well. So, all right, moving on. Did I forget the question? I did not. Okay. The reason we moved here was my spouse was working for a company based in the US. In about 2018, they asked her, they said, go ask your wife if you guys can move overseas for, an opportunity with us to grow overseas. So she came to me and asked, and at the time I was in the middle of IVF. So it was like a bit of a heavy ask, but I sat with it for a while and then concluded that it was a great option for us. We were increasingly feeling disconnected and uncomfortable about the trajectory of the U.S. at the time, and even in 2018. And so that was one of the reasons. So we began to look, and just for a moment, I'll share. The first country they wanted us to go to was Singapore, but we looked into that and had some conversations with colleagues and friends, and were told that may not be the best or safest choice for us because we were told that there were some friends who were LGBTQ and were not enjoying their time there, that was not appreciated very much in the culture there. So we decided not to go with Singapore, and then we looked at Madrid. And so we traveled to Madrid to explore that, and I really enjoyed traveling there, but I didn't feel like it was my place to live there. And then they offered us Mexico City, but because my wife is from Mexico, she's like, no, thank you. I already was there. I want to go somewhere else. And then they said, well, great. How about Amsterdam? And I thought, I don't know about that because of the idea that I had about it. And I should have said the Netherlands, but it was like Singapore, as a country, Madrid city, Amsterdam. They didn't say Netherlands, they said Amsterdam. Anyhow, so at first I was very leery about it, but we traveled here to explore it, and pretty quickly, within a day or two, I realized there's so much more to this city, and eventually I learned to this country than what I knew or than what was projected to me. So needless to say, we made the decision to go for it, and here we are.
So what aspects of Dutch society or policies appealed to you during your visit?
Well, I loved that it felt, when we first were here, I really enjoyed the kind of walking around the public transit, the parks, and I know when you say I think so many things are relative. So to me, I would say there's a lot of green space. I know it's not like the Pacific Northwest in the US where there's no mountains and these things, but I think there's a lot of little parks around that are really nice, and just the vibe of people and seeing so many people out walking and cycling and all the little shops, and I love the architecture, and it just felt, I don't know, it just had a really nice vibe to it. So, I suppose when we first ventured out, we did, of course, come across a red light district, and I did smell some weed a couple times, but I very quickly realized, there's a lot more to this place than just that, so very simple.
So it wasn't anything powerful or anything from the news or anything that was relative to that scene.
No, I just needed to see it for myself and feel it and kind of explore. And then of course, realizing that we can just hop on the train and, go to Brussels and then go to Paris, et cetera, et cetera. And doing that, it just made me appreciate, wow, it's not just living in Amsterdam, it's being in the Netherlands and being in Europe and being, having all these countries so accessible. So that also added to it, the idea of it being a liberal country and all of these other things. It was there, but at the time, again, I was like fully riding the hormones situation with my 6 rounds of IVF. So I had limited capacity to think a whole lot further than that. Honestly, I mean, I trusted my instincts mostly, I would say. And then conversations that we had with colleagues from my wife who had also relocated and different stories and what they were up to and et cetera, et cetera. So as we made that decision, or were making that decision, I suppose, we were learning more and more, which helped to validate our choice in the first place.
So once you arrived, did the reality align with your expectations regarding the support for LGBTQA families?
Ready for this one? No. In fact, it was quite shocking because although the Netherlands was the first country to introduce gay marriage, it was not a very welcoming experience for us when we first landed here. Specifically because, well, aside from the fact that we arrived an hour before the Dutch government closed the border during COVID, aside from that, it was because when we went to register our son to get his, BSN number, and which is like the key to everything here, they rejected it because they said they needed adoption paperwork. And we said, well, he wasn't adopted. We have a birth certificate with both of our names on it. And they refused it. And they said, this is unacceptable. We can't do this here. And it was like a little bit of that candid camera moment. Like, it's like when you think something and it's completely not that at all. It was very shocking and a little bit horrifying and a bit of like, what did we just do and where are we and all of those things. And so fortunately, or only because the large company my wife was working for at the time had resources, so as soon as she let them know, suddenly everything was approved. It wasn't immediate. It took, I don't know, a couple days or something, but it was really shocking. And then we were told that it would always depend on the person you get and how they decided to handle that. So I was very shocked, and it was not the best kind of introduction to not only the Netherlands, but Amsterdam. It's like what people think about it, and here we are straight away not being able to just register our kid. So that was shocking.
Sorry, I'm taking a moment here just listening to that because I did not know that part of the story.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really, again, and just like all the COVID stuff on top of it was just exacerbated everything. It's like even something as basic as going there to have your appointment was like a whole to do, So that was really unsettling to say the least. And like I said, it of course made us have that like, yeah, buyer's remorse. Like what, we just moved here on our, one-way ticket and all of our stuff is on a ship somewhere. And here we are. And we're having trouble, So it was shocking, but it was interesting because just for a moment, it also felt like, oh my gosh, again? Because when we were in Boston, where my son was born, we went to get his Mexican passport and birth certificate created. And because it was legal in Mexico to have same-sex parents. So we filled out all the paperwork and went in, and they rejected us. And they said one of us would have to be listed as the father. And we're like, what is this? But even though it had been legal there, nobody had ever taken the next step to update the system. So the system was unable to process it. But because we had some good relationships, some connections in the right places, we were able to, and ended up spending the whole day with them so that they could call around to all the other locations in the U.S. to help figure out and how to fix that. And so Mateo is actually the second kid with a Mexican parent born in the U.S. to gay parents, if that makes sense. Wow. So he's the second kid. So they fixed the whole system. So we went through that in the US, but we left it so that the next families that would come after wouldn't have as much difficulty. So we went through that, and then we get to the Netherlands, and yeah, here we go again. So one of those.
Wow. But what usually is also for anyone and everyone living in the Netherlands, one of the biggest problems is housing. Do you want to share your story about how you found your house?
Listen, I feel a little bit embarrassed is not the right word. I feel like profoundly grateful for my story because I'm very aware. I would say I'll just take that for a second and share the two biggest things, at least from my vantage point, what I've seen and heard. The two biggest challenges with people moving here. One is the housing situation, and two is the social piece in being able to get Dutch friends, basically. So on the housing front, because we were very fortunate to have a comfortable relocation package moving here. So that was a gigantic help. I can't imagine for all the people and families that do this on their own. It's like, yeah, I can't imagine. And my heads at the time and, all the pregnancy, postpartum and COVID stuff, it was just, I would never have been able to navigate all of that. So in any case, relocation folks helped us do a lot of it. So we were in corporate housing. We landed here in corporate housing. At first, it was hard to find an apartment because, like I said, it was COVID and yeah, it was just all kinds of difficult. And it was, yeah, in the winter and whatnot. And then suddenly I was looking at some places. And of course, coming here, I had my list of like must-haves, all the things I must have.
Dreams.
And then you look at a few places, you're like, ooh, those are actually like, yeah, if you're lucky, maybe, but probably never kind of thing. Anyway, so then we were looking and then suddenly there was nothing on the market. There was zero inventory, nothing. So there was this one place that we had seen. We started begging for it and we did get it. So we're really fortunate. It basically had, yeah, I'd say like one thing on our must-have list. It had 3 bedrooms. So we moved in there and then this amazing thing happened shortly afterwards. Just quick. So one of the things, and I think this has since changed. So we had found one apartment that we liked before there was nothing available. However, you had to rent it for 2 years and only 2 years, which would mean you have to agree to move after 2 years. And even though this place was so nice, it was like just a click over our budget. It had everything. But I was like, I can't mentally move in there knowing we have to move in 2 years. It was just, I could not mentally get there. So we let that place go. So then we move into this other place in March of 2021. And because it was COVID, everybody's working from home. We met this guy in the neighborhood. And one day I saw him outside and he said, oh, Jillian, you're from the US. And I said, yeah. He said, oh, we're moving there. I got a promotion. I was like, oh, amazing. Congrats. And I was like, oh, are you selling your house? And he said, yeah. Do you want to see it? I was like, sure. He said, how about right now? I'm like, let's do it. So we just turned around and walked down the street into his house. And, he had 2 kids and it was just like being lived in. It wasn't staged and whatnot. And he, walked us to the back and opened the doors to this gorgeous garden. And I was like, this can't be real. And I said, amazing, we'll buy it. What's your price? One of these deals. So we just, worked a deal with him because at the time, I call this as like catching lightning in a bottle. It's like a COVID silver lining because he couldn't put it on the open market because they couldn't, sell their house until the US approved their visa. And it was when like Omicron happened and all that stuff. So there was no guarantee. So because of that, we just agreed to a price. Yeah, and then he hooked me up with his mortgage person. So then we just had to sit on it for like 10 months until his visa got approved and then we could move in. So all in all, we were super fortunate. Yep.
I remember you sharing that story years ago. I was like, oh, good Lord. I've
I
walked
know.
around all the streets of Amsterdam. I've never had someone ever shout out, hey, Eva, do you want to buy
I
our
know.
house?
I know. It's like these little moments that can happen. This is like you said about the One Handshake podcast. It's like these little moments that it's this. And I think especially moving to a new place and just being aware of our surroundings and being open, the possibility of things being different than we are looking for, or just open in general. It's like these little moments. My wife was having a meeting with somebody in the park and because COVID. And as they were chatting, this guy went running by and he stopped. He recognized the woman my wife was talking with because they used to work together at Nike. So the friend introduced, and so that was the guy. Turns out our apartment we were renting was on the same street that we now own the property, right? So this is how we got to, she saw him in the park for a second. It's like this kind of thing. So I guess you could say right place, right time. The universe was like, yeah, your 6 rounds of IVF and your lovely labor and delivery and then postpartum and then COVID will throw you a bone. So we gratefully accepted the bone and now have a great property here.
So speaking about moving here and now you've got your property, which is what most people are striving for many years.
I know.
How about your community? How did you navigate that and what steps did you take to create a community for your family?
Great one. So I think this one we were very aware of, probably maybe too aware. because as part of our relocation kind of package, we had 50 hours of Dutch classes, which my Netherlands is niet zo goed. But anyway, we also had 8 hours of culture training. And this culture training really impressed upon us the social differences between the American culture, the Mexican culture where my wife is from, and Dutch culture. And so they talked about how it's really difficult for people to make friends with Dutch people. And then I started seeing all these articles about this is one of the top or the top reason that people are unhappy here and many people leave, etc. So we were so aware of it. But then at the same time, we're like, well, what can we do about that? We're just going to be how we are and just do what we do and not try to act a certain way and whatnot. And so, yeah, we just did. So when we we bought our place in February, or no, we moved into our place. So that was the story, by the way, delayed punchline. So we ended up moving less than a year later after we moved into our apartment. Originally, I was like, yeah, here we go. Less than a year later, we're moving. I was like, yeah. So we moved in here February 2022. A few months later, we hosted a block party kind of thing to be able to introduce ourselves to the neighbors and meet people. And so we did that, and almost everybody came, and many of them were Dutch. And it was then that we realized that many of our neighbors knew each other by name, but never had a conversation. And so suddenly they were in our garden having wine and chatting and whatnot. And it was a really fun experience. There were a lot of Dutch, but a lot of different cultures as well. And so we just continued to do that. And then, yeah, my kid had his second birthday party here, and we do a piñata, of course, Mexican wife. So we do a piñata. So we had, we invited people from daycare and families we met in the neighborhood, and they came, and it was like, wow, we've never seen a piñata except for on the movies. So there was like some of that excitement and whatnot. But we just continued. And then Thanksgiving, we invited some people. They were like, I would say not quite friends yet, but becoming friendly, and invited them. So they were like, yeah, let's go. And so we just invite people and just act as if and just do what we do. We invite people, introduce people, and continuing to do that. And they all know that we're learning Dutch. And we also recognize, and again, this is not maybe for everybody, but the humor, the style of humor is like very like to make fun of kind of thing, which is very similar to the humor that my wife grew up with, the Mexican humor. It's like making fun of each other. And if you do that, it's a sign of that you care for them, like whatever. So they would make fun of us and we'd make fun of them. And it was, but not taking it seriously, like kind of in a joking, loving way. And so we continued to do that. And we're really fortunate. We have a really excellent friends now that happen to be Dutch as well. So we're really grateful.
I'm actually shocked because you're saying like, yeah, not belittling, but like taking the piss, basically, as I would say it. Yeah. So you're taking the piss out of each other. To me, that's a very Irish thing. I do not know the Dutch for that.
Really? Well, that's why I'm saying it's like the people that we know, like the groups that we're around, it's like this. So this is how it is. Like they make fun of us straight away. And like at first when it happened, we were like, whoa, are they being serious or is this a joke? And so we just were like, you know what, we're going for it. So we just dished it right back. And then it was like, we were in, so we were invited to like the Dutch circles, like the birthday circles. But in the beginning, of course, they would all speak Dutch and we didn't. So we used to laugh and be like, why are we here? Like, what is going on? Or like, and my wife would just quietly commentate, like pretend of what was going on and what they were saying because we had no idea. But then, of course, my kid was there. And so my kid was becoming, quite adept at speaking Dutch. So then now my kid's talking to these people. I have no idea what my kid's saying, what they're saying. And we're thinking, they're probably laughing at us. Like, look at those clowns laughing. They have no idea what's, So we just went with it. But now it's like, this is in a way, our chosen family here. So we celebrate birthdays, Christmas, like all the holidays with them. We go glamping with them several years in a row now. And like they hang out, and it's so nice because of course living here, so this is why I feel a little bit guilty. Like our living situation, amazing, and then our friend group here, amazing. I feel very fortunate. I realize that not everybody is having that experience, but I think the shared experience for most of us is it is hard to be so far away from loved ones and whatnot. So I'm really so grateful. It's like our really close friends nearby have a son that's about a year older than my boy. And the little boy's Oma is kind of like my son's Oma. They have said that. He's like, oh, are you like my Oma? And I feel like, well, not really. You have grandparents. They just live in different countries. But for him, it's like, to be able to have that. So it helps to make it feel more complete here, even though it'll never necessarily be the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah. As you say earlier about chosen family. So you can always choose your own as well if that's how you really
Yeah.
feel in your heart. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
Speaking on the LGBTQIA side, what kind of support have you actually found from there or the community from that side of things?
Yeah, super. So again, after we finally got my kid approved, got his BSN, we then found daycare for him to start, I don't know, a while later. So he was like 13 months when he started. And we went, and so it was a Dutch daycare. So again, we're still in the early parts of like just had like 5 words like lekker and a couple of others, like not many Dutch words in our vocabulary. So we're just showing up and doing the best we can, but keeping eye on seeing what other families were there and whatnot. And then one night there was a parent meeting for something. I don't know what, because it was in Dutch, but I went anyway and looked around and I thought, wow, I don't think there's any other, we'll call rainbow families. And so then by then we had gotten to know the teacher quite well. And I asked them and they said, yeah, there were like 60 families in the school. And they said, yeah, there's none else, just you two, you guys. We're like, oh no, my kid's the only one in this. It's like, this is Amsterdam. I'm like, what? I thought this is like gay central. Like, what is happening? And so we were very surprised about that. Eventually, a male couple came with twins, and then shortly after, another couple came. They had 2 dads and a mom. And so there were a couple of others. But in the meantime, then another family, there was a single mom. So it was really great. It ended up becoming great for my kid to have different references, like, oh, they have 2 dads. Oh, she has 1 mom. And oh, she has 2 dads and a mom. Like, to begin to see that. But beyond that, going out to all the playgrounds around everywhere, which sidebar, I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm having another delayed reaction. I call it perimenopause. But anyway, so I did listen to some podcasts prior to moving here. And one of them I heard that said there are 450 parks in playgrounds in Amsterdam. And I remember like, wow, that's really something else. And so fast forward, here we're living here and we discover why that can be, because like every block has one, like even a small one. So we were at all of them because my kid started walking the day he turned 11 months and then never stopped. So it was just like, it wouldn't go into a stroller after he turned a year. So we were at all the playgrounds all the time. We're like, where are the gay folk? Where are they? None. Anywhere. It's like again and again. And actually one day I saw this woman at the park. Her daughter was playing near my kid and we started chatting, a Dutch woman. And she said somehow it came up in conversation about I'm from the US, and then something about, oh, did you move here with your husband? Oh no, I moved here with my wife. And then she was like, oh, do you play soccer? And I'm like, what? She's like, oh yeah, isn't that right? The gay women from the US play soccer.
Oh,
I'm like, oh my God, this is so funny. But she was like, serious? And I was like, well, I actually did play in college. I haven't played in a while because she wanted me to play in her football team here. It was a very funny moment. But in any case, after a while, we ended up meeting one family with 2 moms. And so I met them in the park one day and I said, oh my gosh, you guys exist. And she was like, yeah, it's a Dutch Italian family. And so they called their kid over, who was a little bit older than my kid, and they told him, oh, look at this little boy has 2 moms just like you. And it was a moment. It was like, we were both so eager for that because representation matters so much. So I will say we were shocked that like we felt like we didn't get our copy of the gay agenda. Like, where is everybody? And there's lots of gays around, but not with kids. And then they said, oh, it's because the neighborhood you live, etc. So eventually we began to network around and find out, and have now found some really great resources, which I'll forward to you so you can include in the show notes, because I'm definitely not going to attempt to pronounce the name, but some really excellent organizations and friends and different groups and social activities that we do. And now we also receive incoming calls and whatnot and messages from other families, other LGBTQIA families who have moved here and are in the same boat that we were when we moved here, and wondering, are we the only ones? So now we receive those and then go meet with them and chat and give them the scoop and pass along the resources. So there is a community here. It's just not as, I don't want to say prolific, but it's just not, I guess, pronounced. It's not as pronounced or common as I thought that it would be.
wow. So from leaving the United States, having set up now the second child born to a Mexican mom
Yes.
and an American
Yeah.
mom, and having now created something now for everyone thereafter to actually be able to not have to endure what you've gone through, you now have done it again, where you're now kind of like the lighthouse, basically, where everyone can kind of come to you and be like, Christ, we just moved here. We don't know what the hell's going on. You're like, been there, done that, but here you go. Here's a bit of a pamphlet for you to help you support you on your way.
Yeah, but that's what I think life is, and I think that's definitely what parenting is, or could be, or maybe should be. It's like we're all at a point sometimes when we can give help, and we're all at a point when we need help. And so I think if we just are aware of that and give help when we can, and when we need it, ask for it, because this is part of, I think, also being human. And so, yeah, I think we had some really difficult experiences. And so if we can help other people to kind of, smooth out the jagged edges, then we're going to do that. And at the same time, I mean, it's like in adjusting to life here, I mean, this is how it is with our Dutch friends, like asking all these like ridiculous questions about everything, and they're helping with us with everything. So I mean, we all of us have things that we can help with and things that we need help with. So I think this is how we maintain equilibrium, you know?
It's very true. To wrap things up, I've only got a couple more questions.
Yeah.
What changes or improvements would you actually like to see in the Dutch society or Amsterdam to better support diverse family structures?
Oh boy, this is one of
Sorry.
those thoughts that you make me have to think. What could the Dutch government do differently?
Well, Dutch society in general.
Society. So, yeah. Ooh, this is one. Am I gonna give a controversial answer? Ooh, let's see if I can think of a different answer. Um, you know, this is an excellent question, and I am like, I'm struggling to come up with a sufficient answer. I feel like even though there's not a lot of like I just use gay as a quicker abbreviation, one syllable, easy. Like there's not a lot of gay families around. I also don't feel like I feel like we're okay. I wish there were some more, because so my kid could see that. And although I will say some of his classmates have said to their parents that why can't they have two moms like Mateo does? You know,
Wow.
it's kind of funny. I know. But anyway, yeah, I feel like there's not really any issue. We're not having trouble. It doesn't affect our lives, or it just doesn't rank high enough because there's so many other things that are more challenging. So I'm having a hard time coming up with an answer. I think like one of the, I guess, foundational things about Dutch culture, or one of the most, they say just do normal. So that's
Yeah.
like just act as if, just do normal. And so this is how we do. But it's also, I don't know, I don't really have a good answer beyond that. I don't feel like we're not safe. I don't feel like we're being discriminated against. I don't think that, I mean, my kid comes home from school sometimes and says, girls can't marry girls. It's like, but this is what
Child.
kids talk about and how they learn. And so we talk about that, and that could happen anywhere. And so I mean, I don't have anything bad to say. I haven't had any bad experiences at all.
I have to say, this morning I was watching one of the TED Talks. Every Monday morning, I'm trying to be inspired by listening to Brene Brown and do TED
Mm-hmm.
Talks and stuff like that. And this morning was actually The Surprising Science of Happiness with Dan Gilbert.
Mm.
And in that, he was talking about just the expectations of happiness and the creativity of happiness. And honestly, just listening to your story is a case of you've created something.
Mm.
You came
Mm.
here with maybe a different expectation, but that didn't stop you. And
Mm-hmm.
it didn't set you back, or you didn't blame
Yeah.
anything. You just went, okay, well, if this isn't happening, then let me go ahead and do something else. And you did, and you've created it, and you've developed
Mm.
it, and you've nourished it. And as I said, you really are thriving here in the last like
Yeah.
3 years, that you've really grown and grown, and you've created it yourself.
Yeah, I think so much of it really is mindset. And I see that a lot of people come here and they compare everything to what their life was like in the US, for example. And so I understand that. But then eventually you realize it's like there's a lot of other places in the world as well. And the Netherlands is not trying to create a mirror image of the US and all of these things. And to see there's other ways to live, other ways to work, to communicate, to like everything. And so just to continue to nurture that kind of open-mindedness. And I think much of the time you can be pleasantly surprised. It's like the example, like if I tell people at home, oh, it's so fun, like riding our bikes and going to the super on our bike. Yeah, in the rain, when it's dark in the winter, it's like, yeah, but you know what? It's okay. Like that's not fun to do, but overall, it is pretty fun. It is pretty fun. I feel like I'm on the set of Goonies or Stand By Me all the time with my backpack on and riding my bike. It's like it's forever going to be a nostalgic thing, but I think the more, at least in our experience, the more open-minded we try to foster this in each other as well, because sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, this is so Dutch or whatever. It's like, yep. And my take on it is so American. Just to realize, but to continue to nurture a kind of an open mind, because it's required. I think it's required when you have a kid, personally, but also raising a kid in a different country and even continent for us. Yeah, but then you can be pleasantly surprised, and there's so many things that are I think, amazing about living here, that I wake up grateful every single morning.
Beautiful. For any other LGBTQIA families considering moving to the Netherlands, are there any insights or advice you would offer on your own experiences?
So I can say it's a bit timely, but I do know that there are, I believe, ongoing webinars happening. A friend of mine is an immigration attorney, and he's a bit inundated at the moment, but they're doing webinars to answer a lot of questions, specifically for LGBTQIA families and people who are looking at their options for moving here. So I could get that information and see if I can share it with you for the show notes. I believe those are ongoing, like I said. And then the organization that I was mentioning before is a great resource. There's a couple of them, but one in particular is a really great resource that does different events and whatnot. And it's just nice to be able to do a Sinterklaas event and for my kid to be there, and all the families are like ours. And without talking about it, it's just, we're just there as families. So there are some really good resources here. So I think it's probably best to just share them and put the links in the show notes.
From my understanding, it was really you put yourself out there, you did the classes, you did the cultural classes as well to help you really understand them. Would they be advisable?
Yeah, for sure. The same thing goes, let me just add quickly, because this realization helped me, just related to the, I was going to say the gay thing, but also in terms of creating friendships like with Dutch people. Because of so many expats coming here for just a 3-year contract and go, they're very often, resistant or closed or curious. And I mean, I've been here now 4.5 years, and I've already had a number of new friends leave. So that's also part of it. So if you're here, just know that it doesn't mean you won't be able to make any friends, but people are going to be aware that if you're going to be here for a short while and go. But if you are planning to stay like we are, we're very open about that, and we talk about it, and we talk about the things that we love about here, etc. And so it's being, I would say, humble, but also showing that, the things that you love about living here. I think that a lot of times it's easy to complain about things, but they respond. If you talk about the things that you like about being here and they see that you're trying to learn Dutch, that also helps.
Well, thank you, Jillian. Thank you so much for joining us and for putting your voice out there. And we'll be, as she said, we'll be putting everything into the show notes so that everyone will be able to actually find something or somewhere that they'll be able to go as well to find out more information. If you found this episode helpful or insightful, please consider subscribing and leaving a review and sharing it with others who might benefit. Your support helps us continue to bring diverse stories to light and foster a more inclusive community for all families. This has been great catching up with you, Jillian, I have to say, because it's been a few years since we've actually seen each other, I feel.
I know.
So it's
so great. You never know how things are going to evolve from our first time showing up and seeing you. And here we are a couple of years later. I mean, go figure.
Exactly. So thank you so much. And again, you'll also be able to catch Jillian on her own podcast, One Handshake, where she is talking about the power of just simply meeting someone, whether she ends up buying her house from them or God knows what else.
Yes.
It's a great insight, and it's actually a very positive outlook on things. Thank you again, and thank you for listening.
Thanks, Eva. Ciao.